Mornings in the Obina house never announced themselves loudly. They arrived quietly, weighed down by responsibilities that had no intention of waiting. The kettle whistled softly on the stove. A radio murmured from somewhere in the background, its volume low enough to be ignored. Amara stood just outside the kitchen, adjusting the strap of her school bag for the third time, even though it sat perfectly fine on her shoulder. She stepped in. Her aunt stood by the counter, sleeves rolled up, eyes distant as she stirred a pot that had already been stirred too many times. The woman looked younger than her worries, but older than her age. Not angry, just tired. Amara reached for a plate. Her fingers trembled. The plate tapped against the counter with a small, sharp sound. Her aunt paused. Not sharply. Not dramatically. She simply stopped moving and turned slowly. Amara, she said, pressing her fingers briefly to her temple. Please be careful. Not today. The words weren't harsh, but they carried weight. The kind that made Amara's chest tighten. I'm sorry, Auntie, Amara replied quickly, lowering the plate. Her uncle looked up from his seat, a calm presence in a room that felt permanently stretched thin. She didn't break anything, he said gently. She's just nervous. The aunt sighed, not in anger, but in exhaustion. She wasn't thinking about the plate. She was thinking about hospital appointments, money that never stayed long enough, and how life had quietly rearranged itself around responsibilities she hadn't planned for. Amara picked up her bag. She didn't linger. She had learned that lingering often turned silence into something heavier. Outside, the morning air felt cooler, cleaner. She walked out of the compound without looking back, unaware that this ordinary morning was already pressing itself into memory. Because before the day ended, nothing would feel ordinary again. The road to school was familiar enough to be walked without thought, yet that morning, every step felt deliberate. Amara walked alone. Her uniform was neatly pressed. Her cornrows were freshly done. To anyone watching, she looked like every other student heading to school. But inside, her thoughts moved faster than her feet. She passed shops opening for the day, vendors arranging goods, neighbors exchanging casual greetings. Life moved on around her, unaware of the quiet pressure building in her chest. She thought of her mother. Not the way she used to be, but the way she was now. Tired. Fragile. Always apologizing for things that were never her fault. Amara tightened her grip on her bag. She wasn't allowed to fail. Not now. Not ever. At the school gate, noise rushed toward her. Laughter. Shouting. Complaints about homework. Excitement about nothing in particular. She paused for half a second, then stepped inside. She didn't know that by the end of the week, this place would stop feeling safe. Mrs. Femi noticed Amara before Amara noticed her. It wasn't because Amara was loud. It was because she wasn't. She sat too still at her desk, eyes forward but unfocused, as though listening to something no one else could hear. Her hands rested on her notebook, fingers curling and uncurling slowly. Mrs. Femi was not the kind of teacher who demanded attention. She earned it quietly. Years of experience had taught her that silence often spoke louder than disruption. As she wrote on the board, she glanced back again. Amara hadn't moved. Most students filled the room with noise, whispers, laughter, complaints, but Amara existed in a bubble of quiet concentration that felt heavy. Mrs. Femi paused her lesson. "Class," she said calmly, "open your notebooks." The scraping of chairs and the rustling of paper filled the room. Amara opened hers instantly. When their eyes met briefly, Amara looked away, heart racing for no reason she could explain. Mrs. Femi didn't push. She simply remembered. Somewhere at the back of the classroom, the twins leaned toward each other, whispering about something unrelated. They laughed softly, careful not to attract attention. This was just another school day. At least, that's what everyone thought. Break time changed the atmosphere of the school instantly. The classroom emptied into noise and movement. Students clustered in groups, trading snacks, gossip, and careless opinions. Amara stayed near her desk, pretending to organize her books. She wasn't avoiding anyone deliberately. She just didn't feel like explaining herself to questions she didn't have answers to. The twins passed by laughing. "She's always serious," one of them muttered under his breath. "Probably thinks she's better than everyone," the other replied casually. They didn't mean harm. They didn't mean kindness either. Across the corridor, Selena leaned against the railing, adjusting the strap of her bag. She wasn't watching Amara directly. In fact, she rarely looked at her at all. But she noticed patterns. Who stayed quiet, who teachers watched, who seemed to carry invisible weight. Selena had learned early that information didn't always come from conversations. Sometimes, it came from observation. She turned away as students rushed past her. Nothing had happened yet, but something was beginning to take shape. By the end of the day, Mrs. Femi had written Amara's name down. Not for punishment, not for praise, just as a note. After class, she stood by her desk as students filed out. Amara packed her bag quickly, eyes fixed downward, hoping to disappear into the flow. Amara. The name stopped her. She turned slowly. Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Femi studied her for a moment, not critically but carefully. You've been quiet today, she said gently. Is everything all right? Amara hesitated. She could lie. She could tell the truth. Or she could say nothing. I'm fine, ma'am, she replied finally. Mrs. Femi nodded. All right, she said. If you ever need to talk. My door is open. Amara nodded and left. Mrs. Femi watched her go. She had heard those words before, I'm fine, spoken in the same careful tone, carrying the same weight. And she knew better than to ignore them. The morning sun filtered through the thin classroom blinds as Amara studied the notice on the board. Mechanical Engineering Aptitude Exam registration closes in 2 weeks. Her heart sank. The exam could change her life. A full scholarship, a chance to prove herself, but the registration fee was more than she had. She thought of her part-time work, scrunchies she had made, and the small tailoring jobs at Mrs. Collins' shop. Even the tiny support from her cousins in university wasn't enough. I'll figure it out, she whispered to herself, fingers tightening around her notebook. Outside, students hurried to the morning assembly. Selena passed by, serene and unbothered. Amara hardly noticed. She was too focused on the numbers, the money, the dream. The weekend found Amara at Mrs. Collins' shop, stitching fabric with meticulous care. Each scrunchie, each hem, was a step closer to her dream. Mrs. Collins handed her 10,000 naira. You've worked hard, Amara. Keep it up. Amara counted it carefully. It was something, yet so little compared to what she needed. Not even enough for the registration fee, she thought, placing the bills in her purse. Ruth appeared at the shop, smiling. I'll take a few scrunchies, she said. Thanks, Ruth, Amara replied, keeping her tone light. She didn't suspect a thing. Ruth was just a friend, helping her along the way. Little did she know, Selena was already observing, quietly planning the next step. Back at school, Amara carefully stored her money in Mrs. Femi's closet, trusting her teacher to keep it safe. She told herself, I just have to stay organized, stay careful. Days passed, and Amara's focus remained on the registration fee. She sold a few scrunchies to classmates and kept the coins safe. Every step felt like a climb up a steep hill. But she didn't complain. Selena lingered in the background, a shadow no one noticed, quietly waiting for the perfect moment. Then came the moment that changed everything. During a study period, Amara discovered the money was missing from her desk. Her pulse quickened. She tried to remember. Who had access? Only she and Ruth had stayed last in the classroom. Only Ruth had access to her locker, where she had left some personal items. Slowly, suspicion crept into Amara's mind. Could it be her? She wondered. Subtle changes followed. Amara began giving Ruth brief, questioning glances in the hallway. She avoided lingering near her desk. She didn't accuse her, but the tension between them was now visible, even if unspoken. Ruth noticed the shift and frowned, confused. She had done nothing wrong. Yet she could feel Amara's eyes tracking her, the distance between them growing. Selena stayed in the background, invisible to both, orchestrating every detail. The day of the basketball practice brought the next shock. Amara opened her locker, and there it was. The money. In her locker. She froze. How could it be there? She hadn't touched it since giving it to Mrs. Femi. The school office called her aunt immediately. Money was found. In her locker, they said. Her aunt's mind raced. She remembered past incidents, small mistakes at home. Could this really be happening again? Meanwhile, whispers spread through the hallways. She stole it. Amara did it. Can you believe it? Amara's eyes narrowed. Only Ruth had been the last to leave the classroom with access. Only Ruth could have done this. At least, that's what her mind told her. Ruth felt the growing weight of Amara's silent suspicion. She didn't know why. But every glance from Amara made her stomach tighten. And Selena watched. Quiet, calm, smiling faintly, her plan perfectly in motion. Amara walked down the hall. Her locker key clutched tightly. Her thoughts swirled. Only Ruth had stayed behind last. Only Ruth had access to her locker. Could it really be her? Every step echoed in the near-empty corridor. Her eyes, sharp and alert, scanned Ruth as she approached. Amara did not speak. She only stared, a silent question burning in her gaze. Ruth froze, sensing Amara's suspicion. "Amara, I don't," she started, but the words died in her throat. Whispers escalated. A chorus of accusation. "She stole it. Did you hear?" Amara took the money. Amara clenched her fists, silent fury mixing with confusion. She vowed to find out the truth, who had truly planted the money, and why. From the shadows, Selena watched, unseen by all. Her smile was small but knowing. The tension was unbearable. Would Amara confront Ruth? Would her aunt believe her? How would the school handle this? A girl trapped by lies she didn't commit, a rival plotting in the shadows. A family stretched to its breaking point. Who will uncover the truth? Will Amara survive the storm? Part 2 promises revelations, confrontations, and courage tested to the limit. The truth is yet to be uncovered, as they wait to speak. Don't miss it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and your thoughts in the comments.